like I've been a fan of Neil Gaiman since I first read the Sandman comic books. I didn't even start off with the first one, and I started off with Sandman the Wake, and then I liked it, so I started reading from the start, and it. I never imagined that they would make a TV show on Sandman, because like the ideas of Sandman, they're very hard. They're personifications of
Yeah. Yeah, it's
this, and
it
idea is
isn't.
just like a
Yeah,
big mind fuck.
yeah, it
Fucks with your
is. It
head,
is.
and it's
Yeah,
and if you read the comic books, you can see that aside from Neil Gaiman being a good storyteller, he knows a lot of stories. Like, um, from the different mythologies to I don't know, just literature, and it's just like it's too much. It's too much to explain, and it's really good. And I'm really surprised that they're able to pull it off, because they've tried trying to make TV shows of Gaiman stories like Neverwhere, which wasn't that good, maybe because of the technology at the time. We've seen American Gods. We're all kind of on American
yeah,
First
Gods.
season
yeah,
was amazing. Every season after that has been.
Good Omens is
yeah.
I like Good Omens, but Sandman is just there, and it tries to stay true to the source material, because the source material was really good. Um, there were a few tweaks, like changes in here and there, maybe to update it for the current time, but you gotta watch it, man. It's a mind fuck.
It is interesting to go from watching a whole heap of Marvel, 6-part series, Obi-Wan Kenobi, a 6-part series, and then go to something like this, where it's really
Yes.
the first thing I noticed was, um, you said Gothic, so the guy who plays the Sandman, Tom Sturridge. If they ever want to do a biopic of Robert Smith from The Cure, there's the guy, right?
That's the guy.
That's Robert Smith from The Cure. You don't have to go casting; he's right there, and he's very, very gothic. Very, he looks kind of solemn. He does. I don't think he says anything for the first 2 episodes. Just a bit of a spoiler there, but so he's a very interesting actor. They've got him to play that role, and he's a really interesting, character. He's an interesting someone to watch. I took a long time for me to get a head around what he was all about, but that was a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very different. It's Neil Gaiman. Having watched American Gods, having watched Good Omens, having watched this, and having seen a lot of the Doctor Who stuff he did, there's a particular Britishness to it. Like, to me,
Yes.
it's a British sensibility. It's not from the US or Australia or anywhere else. It's maybe it's because it's him, and I've seen him. First I would have seen him in Doctor Who, but he's not afraid to wrestle with big ideas. A bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Shows like that,
Yeah.
and even go back to Monty Python or something like that. They love to play around with ideas that are supposed to be really important and just muck around in that sandpit. So what happens is that the first couple episodes are really, really interesting. They set up everything, and I thought we were going to go through a whole character arc, through a whole kind of series, just him finding different pieces and him on a bit of a traditional hero's journey to find a couple of MacGuffins. But it's a lot more episodic than I first thought it was. Like, there's a couple of episodes there that are just could almost stand alone from all the other ones. So you have a big actor come in. Some of them are on the screen in front of you. You have a big actor come in, and you think this is going to be a recurring character, and you don't see them again. You're like, oh, that's going to be his kind of buddy or a sidekick or his enemy or whatever. They're gone. You don't see them again. And there's through lines through it, but some of them get very weak and disappear almost, and then kind of come back round again. And so it feels very fresh. It feels very different. And if I had to go back and tell myself before watching it, I'd say just take every episode for what it is. Because some of them are just incredibly creative, incredibly different, and quite refreshing, and have a tension of its own and a flavor of its own. But I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea. Right? Yeah. Okay. It's got an 86% on the run, and I can understand that be some people who would just say, this is too slow, this is too obscure, this is just, I don't like this skinny, gothic-looking, crow type. I can see people saying that. It's a very diverse cast, despite that, and it's got some big actors. It's got Stephen Fry in it,
Yes.
who I love, Stephen Fry. It's got our mate from Logan in it, who's Brett. What's his name? Brett Holbrook. So he's the baddie in Logan. And if you look down the corner, that's him with the glasses on.
Dude. Right.
He's very good. Like nice. he's very. In fact, the last 2 or 3. Corinthian.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's his name. It's Corinthian. The last 3 episodes I thought were really good. I love the last 3 episodes. I thought that really kind of it kicks off a couple of new characters, because again, characters come and go, right? They kind of come and go. And the characters in the last, I thought the last 3 were I don't know how I thought the last 3 were really good. So even if you get through it and you struggle with the ambiguity of it, and you think, I don't know what's going on here, I don't know what's going on there, the last 3 to me come on really strong.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't think I could say what JP said. I don't say definitely go watch it. I would say brace yourself for something really different, something creative, something interesting, and then just prepare for a little bit of episodic
feeling to it,
and just take every as it comes.
Like the comic books were originally tied to the DC universe. Like there are characters connected to Constantine, Wonder Woman, Dr. Fate at one time. I think they're moving into a different direction and distancing themselves from DC. Yeah. What I like about this comic book and TV show is it's not your usual comic book TV show. It's not like people with superpowers like hitting each other. It's more dive about like humanity and what makes people tick and how people think and like the flaws of the universe, and nothing is perfect,
right?
And good and bad is good and bad, and what is true and what is not true. It's just all jumbled up.
Yeah, it talks a lot about dreams and stories.
Yeah, that's why I think you should go see it,
and nightmares. It talks about nightmares, the role of nightmares, and it's got some really powerful moments. There's some real moments. Like there's one bit in there. I hope I'm not giving too much away, but there's an episode that's dedicated to a character called Death, and I found that just because it's so different. It's different. I hope that Death comes for me. I'm waiting for her. That's all I'm going to say. But it's beautifully done. It's beautiful. That episode is beautifully done. What she says, what she does, a lot of reflection on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why it's different. That's why, and you know, it's good not having, you know, episode 5, let's dump all the character stuff, and then episode 6, let's have a punch up and resolve it. As what we're beginning to see come out of Marvel and Star Wars and Disney's recently, and even different from The Boys. It's, you know, it's different from, you know, all these things. Probably might have a little bit more in common with something like this, the Umbrella Academy, because it gets a bit bizarre at times.
Not even.
Yeah.
Not even. Like Umbrella Academy, in the end, it's still a punch-up, you know?
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the similarity. I'm saying the similarity is that...
The pacing and the tone. The pacing, at least.
The Umbrella Academy had one episode last season all entirely around a wedding at the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like it was one episode that they stayed in that one room and characters did what characters did. And there's a couple of episodes like that too. It's not necessarily about punch-ups, but there's one that happens in about one location, really. But it's a freaky episode. So I'm glad I watched it. I'm really glad. I was just refreshing to me. It was just refreshing, different.
Let's remind our friends to please click on the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos out.
Subscribe!
Subscribe!
Garbage. Oh, die.